All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. This is the first series in a webinar series that we're going to facilitate for you all at the university. My name is Celeste Roan. I'm an adoption and change management consultant with Microsoft, and I have the pleasure of working with Jason Wood, Karen, and Dr. Wayne on this Copilot for Microsoft 365 project. So today's session is going to be focused around data. So we're going to look across, we're going to start off grounding in Microsoft 365 and ground everybody in what that general understanding is, what makes Microsoft 365 Copilot so powerful and unique from other AI tools. We'll go into an activity around scheduling a prompt with Copilot, and then we're going to focus on data with the analyst agent, Excel, and a PowerPoint, and try to build a workflow of building a presentation from the information in your data from there. And then we will end with an open Q&A, and I think we should have about 10 minutes or so to get to Q&As at the end of the session. But if you have any questions, I also have my colleague Mario Bravo on today, and he's going to address any questions that you might have. You'll want to put those in the Q&A portion. Since this is a webinar, we want to make sure that we do utilize that Q&A. Anything else? With that said, let's go ahead and jump in. I do want to give a little bit of context on the webinar series that we're starting. As I mentioned before, this is the first one in that series, but we're going to have them every couple of weeks. So the next one that we're going to have is on October 22nd. This one is around insights to impact. So it's about Copilot for research and administration. So you can learn prompts and Copilot skills around literature reviews, summarizing meetings and transcripts, streamlining compliance documentation and policy updates, and even Copilot's drafting and editing capabilities. I will go ahead and drop the link to sign up for this in the Q&A as well. And then we will have one November 7th, the course catalyst, transforming teaching with Copilot, where we'll showcase how to use Copilot to build lesson plans and syllabi, create adaptive learning materials, and then again, showcase Copilot in PowerPoint and Word as well. So I'm just going to drop that link in the chat for everyone or in the Q&A. And you can also see it here. If you scroll down here, you'll see all of those webinars and the trainings and the registration links as well here at the bottom of that web page. So we'd love to see you at all three if possible. But no problem, understand everybody's schedules. These will be recorded as well too, and then posted to the website if you're not able to join one of them. All right, so let's jump into it then. So what is Microsoft 365 Copilot? So the best way to describe it is your AI-powered assistant. What makes it truly powerful is the fact that it is integrated across your Microsoft 365 applications that you use every day. So for example, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, even OneNote, and others that may not even be listed here as well. Now, what that means is that Copilot gives you that personalized response because it's grounded in the information that you have across your M365 applications. So what it means by grounding is that if you ask Copilot a question and the response or the answer is found in a document that you have saved in OneDrive, SharePoint, or a PowerPoint document that is saved across those, as long as it's in the M365 ecosystem, it's going to give you a response that aligns to that answer that is in those documents. Now, it's great that Copilot has access to, your email, your team's chats, your documents, but that also raises the question of, is it secure? And you can be assured that the enterprise-grade security that you're used to experiencing across the rest of your M365 applications are also honored across Copilot as well. So what that means is if the answer is only found in a document that you do not have access to, Copilot is not going to give you a response based off of that document. It's either going to tell you it doesn't have that information or it's going to pull from a different source. or a web page. In addition to that,
I think that we had a hand up. I just want to remind everyone, you can post your questions in the Q&A section. You will see a button right next to the chat on the top ribbon.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so where was I?
You can also use Copilot in the web after having it connected to all of these sources. That's where you were explaining, and you have different versions, and you can also access all the features of Copilot on the web.
Right. I think what I was getting to was the enterprise grade security. And so in addition to that, Copilot is never going to learn from your data. So the language models that power M365 are not going to be trained off of your data as well. So just another thing to note there. All right. So with that being said, how do I go ahead and access Copilot? So you can access it a couple different ways. Copilot actually follows you wherever you are in the M365 applications. So you can access Copilot in a web browser using the link that I just posted here, and that's going to take you to what we call Microsoft 365 Copilot chat. You can also access Copilot in Teams or OneDrive or Outlook, again, throughout the applications as well. And it's important to note too, though, for Copilot to give you a grounded response in your information, your Outlook, your chats, the data that you have in the M365 ecosystem, you do have to make sure that you have the Copilot that has access to this work and this web toggle here. So anytime you have this work toggle selected, that means that Copilot is going to give you a response based off of the information aligned to your account or your Microsoft account. Anytime you have the web version selected, that's going to actually send out a search to the web, and it's going to give you a response based off of a website. And either way, you'll always have access to the different resources or sources that Copilot is pulling for those information or for that information. If you don't have this work and this web available here, then what you're going to want to do is access that link that we had just shared to the university IT site, and then you should see an option to opt in. And it should look something like this. This is going to ensure that you have the right license, that you have access to that Microsoft 365 powered license with the work and the web toggle here. So again, you'll just follow that link that is in the Q&A as well to get there. All right. So before we get into the Copilot apps themselves, I just want to remind everyone a couple tips on the art of prompting. Now, prompting is the questions or the statements that you give to Copilot in order to get the response that you're looking for. We have a couple of guidelines that we'd like to share at Microsoft to ensure that you get the best response possible. So there are 4 key components of a good prompt, or an effective prompt, if you will. The first one being that goal and telling Copilot what you would like to get from it. The context is also important in terms of how you're going to use the information or why you might need it. The source, you can be specific and tell Copilot exactly where to go to recall that information, whether that is, OneDrive, SharePoint, a Teams chat, or you can even link or attach a specific document. And then the expectations. Do you want Copilot to respond in a paragraph? Do you want Copilot to build a document for you? Do you want Copilot to build a table? All of those are different options, and you can specify those through your prompt here. So ultimately, the power of Copilot is also in the fact that you can just use natural language to iterate and go back and forth and work with Copilot to get the response that you want. And so there's not necessarily a bad prompt that you can use. However, these are guidelines that you can use to get the quickest or the most efficient response that you're looking for with Copilot. So I always like to start there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and try a prompt out together. So what we're going to do is showcase, one, the ability of Copilot to give us a grounded response by looking through our chats, our emails, and our recent documents. And then Copilot's also going to give us this task list of items that we can complete by the end of the week, and how Copilot can also help us complete those tasks throughout the week. So the first thing that we're going to do is just run this like a regular prompt in Copilot. And I'm just going to post this in the Q&A, and you can copy and paste it from there. And then I will show you guys how we can actually schedule this as an ongoing prompt. All right, so I'm just going to access this Copilot chat here, and I will go ahead and paste the prompt that I had just put into the Q&A for you all. We'll go ahead and run that prompt. Okay. So as you can see, I've got my list of action items, and then different ways that Copilot can help me here. Now you can take this, add this to your OneNote or whatever you'd like to, or wherever you track your personal task for the week. But what I like to do is schedule this. So you'll just select the 3 buttons once you have a response and select this schedule this prompt. I'm going to have this start every Monday, and I will have this prompt run every week on the Monday and the Friday. We'll say Monday and Friday. So I have beginning of the week and end of the week, but you can specify whatever schedule you'd like. And I'm going to also hit receive an email when responses are ready. And so if I click save here, now Copilot is going to run this prompt every Monday and every Friday at 11:30 a.m. starting on the date that you specify. And so Copilot is going to run this at different times, meaning that you're going to have a different list of action items based off of what's in your chat, your emails, and your recent documents at the time that Copilot runs this prompt. So this is another good way to get a heads up on how Copilot can help you throughout your week, and also just start the week out with a fresh list of activities and priorities as well. You can always reference these as well, what prompts you have scheduled or active or inactive, by selecting the settings button or these 3 dots at the top right here. And then you can select your scheduled prompts, and then you have a list of the scheduled prompts that you have to run. Now, I do want to note this is the only time that Copilot chat is ever going to run something or go do something on its own. Any other time you are going to have to interact back and forth with Copilot. Copilot doesn't necessarily have the capability to autonomously run Copilot prompts or complete activities for you. That's another kind of agent or custom build scenario. All right, so hopefully you guys got some scheduled prompts. Okay. So I did see that the registration list mostly included people that were part of the graduate school. If you are part of the graduate school, could you give me a quick reaction here? And the reactions are just at the top of the bar next to your mic and your stop sharing button. You can raise your hand or even send like an emoji here, just so I have an idea of who's in the room with us. Okay, I'm not seeing too many. So I still do want to cover Copilot in Outlook if that's going to be helpful to you guys. So I'll just go there briefly and showcase just a couple of my favorite Copilot capabilities there. So I'm going to go to my apps here and select my Outlook. Now, one of the first things that you're able to do with Copilot is summarize different email threads. So you always have the ability to select this summary by Copilot. It should automatically show up. Now I am using Outlook in the web, but you should also have this capability in the desktop application. Copilot is made to be compatible with the new Outlook. But if you are also using the classic Outlook application, whether that's online or on the desktop, you should still have access to some Copilot capabilities. So you can get a summary of an email thread here. You can ask Copilot questions, which will open up the Copilot chat where you can interact with different information here. And one of my favorite tips is the ability to schedule with Copilot. So you can select a specific email thread. Select the specific email thread or message here. And then you should have this calendar here with a couple stars. That just indicates that it's powered by Copilot. So if I select this button here, Copilot's going to do a couple different things. One, it's going to identify a time that both me and the person on the email thread are available. Then two, it's going to provide some content for the meeting invite. It's going to do that all based off of the information that's in the email thread itself. So I'll go ahead and hit insert here. You always want to double check the information and make sure that this is accurate. It gives it a title, and then all you have to do is just do that review, make sure that we have the right information here, and then you can go ahead and send and schedule your invite with Copilot. Another helpful tip is that you can customize your experience with Copilot or the way that Copilot helps you to draft email messages. So you'll select that settings here. And then you have draft instructions. So you can tell Copilot exactly what the tone of your email should be, what action items you like to use, or what language, whatever tone and personalization that you're interested in, whether this is length or even a greeting, you can apply here and then select save. And anytime you draft with Copilot from there, Copilot is going to draft it in the way that you have designated here with your custom instructions. And I'll just show one example here. So if I were to reply all to this thread, I have a couple different ways to draft with Copilot. I can type in here what I want Copilot to say, or I can choose from one of these prompts, which kind of work like templates here. So if I just select this request information, then Copilot is going to go ahead and input the person that I need and the topic that I need the information from based off of the content of that email thread. In addition to understanding the context, it's also going to use the tone and the length of the message as designated in the custom instructions there. So just a couple things to keep in mind whenever you're using Copilot in Outlook. All right. So now we'll go back, because I know not everybody has access to Outlook. We're going to go back to our classic Copilot chat here. Now I'm using Copilot chat here in the web because it does give you access to a couple of additional features here. In particular, the agents. So agents are purpose-built to solve a specific problem or a set of problems. And ultimately, that means that Microsoft, or the ones that were built by Microsoft here, kind of the out-of-the-box ones, and I'll show you what that looks like here. These are Copilots that are essentially built for a specific reason. So the researcher one is built to identify or build reports based off of research or going through a large set of information. Analyst, which I'll showcase a little bit today, is built to analyze data. So you can work with things like Excel, Power BI, and SQL, depending on the connectors that you have. You can also get visualizations of this data. And there's also fun things like the prompt coach. So if you're having trouble getting some information out of Copilot, then you can use a prompt coach to help you build the best prompt to get the content that you're looking for. Now, one aspect of the analyst and the researcher agents is that they use the reasoning capability within Copilot. which means that it's going to go through more cycles than you're used to seeing with your regular Copilot chat. It does that on purpose because it's going to do a deeper analysis or a deeper research depending on which agent that you're using. So with that, it is going to take a little bit longer once you submit a prompt to get a response. So I have already submitted a response or submitted a prompt for our analyst agent to analyze some information here. So what I did is I asked Copilot what trends it sees in the uploaded files and which variables are correlated and how much, and asked it to visualize these correlations. So once you submit that prompt, Copilot will also show its work here. So in this case, the analyst agent completed these steps. And this is why it will take a little bit longer. But at the end, you can get analysis like this. So you can see the key trends identified by department. You can see the milestone status. Looks like we've got some data around funding, participants, and average duration or days. It's even going to give us some quick insights based off of that data. And then we have the correlation analysis. It went ahead and created some visualizations for us. So we've got a heat map here and a scatter matrix. If you're looking for a specific type of visualization or a specific type of insight or correlation, you can always adjust your prompt in Copilot to specify or be specific about that question. I do want to show you guys just what that looks like. So let me just pull up the data that we actually submitted here. Okay, so this is the raw data that we had submitted into the analyst agent. So you can see it's got some information around research topic, department, principal investigator. You've got some funding amounts, participation, status, start date, and end date here. All I did was submit this raw information into our analyst agent, and we were able to get these insights. Now, if you want to continue to work with some of the charts that Copilot has provided here, or even some of the data, what you might want to do is open this up in Pages. Once you open this up in Pages, then you can add sections and add additional information or insights. You can continue to work with it iteratively. What I like to do is sometimes open up or access a specific spreadsheet or table. So in this case, we've got this correlation matrix. If I select this button here, this will select the entire table, and then I have the ability to export this to Excel. And it's just going to take a moment. It's going to give me a document that I can go ahead and open. With that information, now I have the ability to adjust the column titles. I have the ability to add this to a different sheet of information that I have, or I can even ask Copilot to give me a different visualization or continue to work with the data from there. There's so many different applications. It's just great to know that you don't have to be stuck in working with the analyst here. You have the ability to go back and forth and build with that information across different applications. You even have the ability to open this up in Word, and you'll have a Word document. Right, so you can continue to work with this in Word. Maybe you build a PowerPoint presentation from it, or you share this with others, and you just make sure that you are able to continue to iterate and adjust this information wherever you're working in the applications. All right, now let's go back to Excel because I want to run some analysis off of our data. Now, we got an idea of what we could do with this research information. in our analyst agent, right? It gave us this report, these tables, and these insights. But let's see what Copilot can do in Excel with the same spreadsheet and information. So I'm going to go back and open our graduate research projects. And a couple things I want to make sure to do anytime I want to use Copilot in Excel. The first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that I have the auto save on. It looks like I do have that activated here. To turn on the autosave, you want to make sure that it is saved in a shareable place like OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams. You can keep the access and the permissions to just yourself if you'd like, or share with others, as long as it has that autosave feature on. Another thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that the information or the data is in a table format. Copilot works best when your information is in a table. So I just made that slight adjustment to my data before I start working with Copilot. Now you can access Copilot a couple different ways. You can go ahead and select the information and the Copilot icon, oops, will show up here. I was hoping this would be a little bit bigger, but it's just a square box with some stars here. And then Copilot goes through the different capabilities that it has in Excel. So this includes deeper analysis, suggesting or identifying a formula for a column, conditional formatting. You can build those charts or those visualizations or even a pivot table. You can even learn about what Excel can do, and then you can chat with Copilot as well. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and open the chat with Copilot. That's going to bring me to my Copilot chat feature here. You can also get to it by selecting the home screen and selecting this Copilot icon. And you may, if you've done a recent update, have this app skills, which will give you similar capability of working with the information that you have in your Excel spreadsheet here. So any of those places are fair game when it comes to submitting your prompt or your question to analyze the data in your Excel spreadsheet. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Copilot to give me a list of all of the projects currently in the data collection phase. Right, so I will just go ahead and submit that prompt. And ideally, it's going to look at our column F and give us a list of all of the projects or the research topics that are in this data collection phase. We'll give it just a moment to work here. What I like about Excel here is that it tells you what it's doing or what's necessary to give you the information. So in this case, it did go ahead and filter our milestone status in order to give us this information. And you can always see a complete analysis here. This shows us the Python code that it ran to get us this output. So we have it here in a table, but then it's also listed all of those projects here. Now, if you just want to work with just the list of projects that are in this data collection phase, you can hit this button, insert into a new sheet. And now you can work with this data here. So for example here, I'm going to ask Copilot to visualize this data in a chart that highlights funding. That should be general enough. But whatever visual you're interested in, you can be a lot more specific with your prompt if you'd like. But in this case, I'm just going to have Copilot visualize this data in a chart that highlights the funding. Let's see, maybe I should have said graph here. Okay, perfect. So Copilot understood where I was getting at in terms of visualization, and it's given me this bar chart here. So we've got looks like, what do we have here? The department, and then also the funding amount here. Looks like it's scaled those back. So I can also add this to a new sheet. And I've got my department, my sum of funding, and then the visualization that I have here. And we can see, yeah, this is scaled in the thousands to align here. Right. So the next thing that I want to do is work with Copilot to suggest a formula. So I'm going to ask Copilot to create a formula to calculate the project duration in days, because what I have right now in my raw data is the start date and the projected end date. So I'll go ahead and ask Copilot, create this formula. And it's going to do two things, or it should do two things in this case. It should, one, give me the formula and explain why it should work. And then it should also give me an option to add that directly to my Excel spreadsheet. All right, so we can see here it's given me the formula. So I have a couple options. I can copy and paste this formula myself directly into the rows that I want this information for, or Copilot has already done this analysis so far. And so I can go ahead and select this insert column button. And it's giving me a preview so I can see what that would look like. And now I have a new column for the project duration days. So I know some of us remember all of the quick formulas like this. Some of us may not. And so this can be helpful in a variety of different ways. This was a little bit more of a simple application, but you can feel free to make this as complex as your data analysis requires. All right. The next thing that I want to do is show a scenario modeling. So let's see if we can forecast completion dates if each milestone is delayed by 2 weeks. All right, so in this case, what Copilot did is it looked at the information here and it came up with some logic to apply. The logic applied here is to add 14 days as a buffer period to the projected end date to estimate a more conservative forecasted completion date. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in the data that we have here, there's nothing really for Copilot to attach a duration to each specific milestone. And so the only thing that Copilot really had to work with was the start date and the end date, and then the overall project duration. And so from that information, Copilot went ahead and gave us the model that, the formula and the model that it felt best fit here. So if we want to do that, we have again the option to insert the column here for our forecasted complete date. All right, let's try one more thing here. I'm going to ask Copilot, what if each project received a 15% increase? What would the total, or what would the updated totals be for our funding amount? All right, so Copilot's given us a response here. It's explained what it did here by increasing each project's funding amount. And it's given us a formula. You can also see the explanation here. And then we can also go ahead and add that column. And we've got our updated funding amount. Oops. Right, and you can see that reflected here. So now what we've done is we've gone through Copilot in Excel to ask different questions or get reactions or summaries. We've done some data analysis. We've got some visualizations, and we've even done some scenario modeling in Excel. So now that we have some information about this spreadsheet, you may be asked to present this information. So what I'm going to do is take this back to PowerPoint. I'm going to open up PowerPoint on the web here, but again, this capability works on the desktop applications as well. Now you have the ability to select or start working from a specific template. You can choose one here, or if you have a University of Miami branded PowerPoint, you can always start from there. And once you start from there with Copilot, then Copilot is going to utilize that same visualizations, the look and feel of that presentation as you build it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select this Copilot icon here once I'm in the document or the file that I want to work with. And I'm going to create a new presentation with this file here. All right. And I'm going to use this prompt here, create a presentation summarizing research project status and funding insights. And I'm going to reference the Excel spreadsheet that we were just working in. So it's this graduate research projects document here. And I'll go ahead and hit submit this prompt. And you can create a PowerPoint presentation from a PDF document, from a Word document, from a other PowerPoint presentation, and even Excel now. And this is one of the newer features that Microsoft has come up with or has released, is creating a presentation from Excel. Let's see if I can just get the Zoom reset here. Okay, perfect. So what we're in now is what Microsoft calls a narrative builder. And this is where you can build a story around the information that Copilot has identified from that Excel spreadsheet. So you've got an overview here that it's giving you in different sections. You have the ability to move the sections around if you want to rework or adjust the order here. You also have the ability to edit and adjust this. So you can add another topic here with some additional reference files, or you can delete it altogether if you'd like to start from a different topic. So this is a way to, build out that narrative or that storyline before you even get to that full PowerPoint presentation. Once you've got a storyline that you feel like makes sense and will appeal to the audience that you're building the presentation for, then we'll go ahead and hit generate new presentation. And Copilot's just going to take a couple moments to show you its work here. So once it's done loading, you'll see the different visuals and the content that it's actually going to build out in the full deck for you. So this gives you an opportunity before Copilot even builds the entire presentation to start over or continue forward with the content. Let's see here. All right, so in general, Copilot did keep the same look and feel of the template, and it incorporated the content that we have here. Now, would I take this presentation and deliver it just as is? Probably not. But what I do like about this is the fact that it allows you to build a story. So now you have different sections and you've got the content from your presentation or from your Excel spreadsheet already inside here. So what you can do is you can work with this content. You can add your own visualizations. You can even select content here and rewrite it with Copilot. Prompt or tell it more of what you're looking for. You can adjust that content. You also have the ability to add a new slide with Copilot. So you're not restricted to just using Copilot to build the presentation in the beginning. You can also add information. And it takes you to a very similar look and feel as you did before, where you'll go ahead and submit your prompt, attach the document or the reference if needed, and then Copilot will build a specific slide with that information. In addition to that, you also have access to Copilot chat here. So if you need Copilot to summarize this information or even give you ideas about other content to include, you have the option to work in Copilot Work here, where it will pull from other documents across your M365 ecosystem, or you can even pull from the web too if you want to switch that grounding here at the top. So it's given me a little summary here, and you can continue to iterate with Copilot here, explore different topics, or even pull in different information. But ultimately, we'll be seeing how we can analyze information with the Copilot Analyst agent, how we can take that further and edit some of the visualizations or even get some forecasts with Copilot in Excel. And then we've even built a presentation from there in PowerPoint. So at this point, I wanted to see if we could open this up to Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? All right, team, we are at time. So thank you all so much for making the time. I think they're going to record this or upload the recording to share as well.